The loudest people seek attention. The strongest ones don't. Sigma males move in silence because power doesn't need permission. Look around long enough and you'll notice a pattern forming beneath the noise. Those who speak the most are often explaining themselves, defending fragile identities, and filling space so others don't look too closely. Those who demand attention are usually compensating for something missing inside. True power behaves differently. It does not announce its arrival or compete for oxygen in the room. It does not interrupt conversations or inflate itself through performance. It simply exists and the room adjusts around it without being told to. There is a reason silence feels heavy when the right man enters a space. It's not intimidation and it's not arrogance. It's presence. A presence so grounded and contained that it subtly alters the emotional temperature without effort or force. The face of such a man tells a quiet story, not through exaggerated expressions or forced confidence, but through restraint, through the calm certainty behind the eyes, through pauses that feel deliberate, not uncertain. The face becomes a canvas of the soul, and on that canvas is written discipline, emotional command, and clarity earned through experience. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes rare, and rarity always carries value. Most men have been conditioned to believe that strength must be visible, that confidence must be displayed, and that power must be proven again and again. But the men who truly shape outcomes understand something deeper. Power that seeks permission is not power. Power that needs applause is fragile. Power that explains itself is already weakening. The silent man does not rush to be understood. He allows others to reveal themselves first. He listens longer than expected, absorbs more than he shows, and speaks less. But when he does, his words land with weight, because they are compressed by thought. This is not emotional distance. This is emotional mastery. Silence, in this sense, is not emptiness. It is compression, like a coiled spring, like a held breath, like a shadow that suggests depth without revealing its edges. This is why certain men feel impossible to read. Their aura precedes them. Their presence lingers after they leave. They move like a ghost, not invisible, but unforgettable. They are not trying to dominate the room. They have already mastered themselves, and self-mastery is the highest form of influence. To understand why Sigma males move in silence, we must stop glorifying chaos and start studying composure, not aggression, but restraint, not performance, but control, not noise, but depth. Let's break them down. Number 1, silence as inner architecture. Silence is not something a man adopts as a strategy or wears like a mask. It is something that emerges naturally when his inner structure becomes stable and integrated. Most men speak because their inner world is loud. Thoughts collide without hierarchy, emotions surge without regulation, and identity feels unfinished, unsettled, and still in negotiation. Speech becomes a release valve, a way to discharge internal pressure. Words spill, not because they are needed, but because they are demanded by unrest. The man who moves in silence has already resolved much of that turbulence within himself. His thoughts no longer chase validation from the outside world. His emotions no longer beg to be witnessed, affirmed, or corrected by others. What remains is composure, and composure changes everything. This is why silence feels heavy around certain men. You are not sensing emptiness or absence. You are sensing containment. Psychological research shows that people unconsciously measure others by emotional leakage. The more uncontrolled expression a person exhibits, excessive talking, reactive emotions, compulsive explanations, the less authority they are instinctively assigned. Silence reverses this dynamic at a primal level. When a man speaks less, each word gains density. His presence becomes deliberate rather than reactive. His face becomes a canvas of restraint instead of impulse. He does not rush to fill space, and because of that, the space bends toward him. This is where aura is born. Aura is not charisma. Charisma seeks attention, approval, and engagement. Aura commands gravity without asking. The silent man is not disengaged, passive, or withdrawn. He is internally organized. He knows what he thinks before he speaks, which makes his words precise. He knows what he feels before he reacts, which makes his actions measured. This internal order is the foundation of elite self-mastery. Without it, silence feels forced, awkward, and even insecure. With it, silence feels natural, grounded, and inevitable. The world quietly rewards men who can sit with themselves without reaching outward for distraction, validation, or noise. That ability alone separates those who create sound from those who create influence. Number 2, the psychology of being unreadable. Human beings are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and when the mind cannot quickly categorize someone, it does not remain neutral. It fills the silence with projection. This is not manipulation or mysticism. It is basic cognition. The brain seeks closure, patterns, and certainty. When those are denied, it creates stories. The silent man understands this instinctively. He does not rush to define himself, not out of arrogance, but out of discipline. He allows others to speak first, to reveal what they assume, what they fear, and what they need. In doing so, he gathers information without asking for it. This is where his power lies, not in control, but in restraint. In psychology, this is known as asymmetric disclosure. The person who reveals less retains leverage not through deception, but through timing. Every interaction becomes weighted in his favor because he's not spending energy correcting perceptions prematurely. Most people collapse under the pressure to be understood. They over-explain, over-justify, and over-defend. Each extra sentence is an unconscious admission of insecurity. Each clarification leaks position. The composed man does the opposite. He pauses before responding. He listens without interrupting. His eye contact is steady, not confrontational, not evasive. His movements are minimal, efficient, and deliberate. And there is nothing performative about him. This restraint produces what feels like a shadow, not something dark, but something deep. Depth unsettles because it cannot be measured quickly. You cannot see the bottom of him at a glance, and the mind respects what it cannot immediately exhaust. People instinctively trust what feels grounded. They defer to what feels stable. In chaotic environments, the man who moves in silence becomes an anchor. His calm does not demand attention, yet it organizes the room. Others unconsciously slow their speech around him. They choose words more carefully. Their emotions regulate themselves in his presence. This is influence without instruction, authority without volume. He does not lead by announcement or charisma, but by coherence. While others chase validation through noise, he preserves his position through stillness. He understands that presence is amplified by absence, that power grows when it is not explained away. In a world addicted to constant expression, the man who knows when to withhold becomes unmistakable. He does not compete for dominance. He lets gravity do the work. Number 3, cinematic stillness and emotional control. Cinema has misunderstood its own icons, and so have most viewers who consume them at surface level. The fascination with characters like Thomas Shelby or Patrick Bateman often misses the real lesson entirely. Their presence is not compelling because of action, aggression, or dramatic dominance, but because of control. Shelby rarely rushes his speech. He allows silence to sit in the room. His pauses are deliberate, almost surgical. He does not scramble to fill space, explain himself, or ease tension for the comfort of others. He understands something most men never learn. Tension is not an enemy. It is a tool. Allowing tension to exist without dissolving it requires emotional tolerance. Most men are trained, consciously or not, to escape discomfort as quickly as possible. They joke, overtalk, posture, or become reactive. The silent man does none of this. He lets discomfort breathe, and in doing so, he shifts power without force. Bateman's unsettling effect works the same way, though in a darker register. His menace is not rooted in violence, but in emotional flatness. He does not seek validation, reassurance, or emotional reciprocity. He offers no emotional handholds. This absence destabilizes others because people are accustomed to emotional feedback loops. When those loops are denied, anxiety rises. What both characters demonstrate, once stripped of cinematic exaggeration, is emotional containment. They do not broadcast their internal states. They do not leak insecurity, excitement, fear, or need. They remain composed even as pressure increases. This is not fantasy, and it is not reserved for fictional archetypes. It is a transferable principle. In real life, the man who remains calm during confrontation gains authority instantly. Not because he dominates the other person, but because he signals safety, self-command, and internal order. Humans instinctively defer to emotional stability. Emotional regulation is not suppression, it is mastery. The silent man has trained himself to experience emotion without being owned by it. He feels anger without exploding, fear without retreating, desire without chasing, and uncertainty without collapsing into explanation. This is the difference between performance and presence. Performance seeks to be seen. Presence does not need to announce itself. It is felt. Number 4, Stoic discipline and the Marcus Aurelius model. Marcus Aurelius never chased admiration, and that alone separates him from most men who seek validation through noise. His meditations were not speeches, not performances, and not branding tools. They were private notes, written to discipline his own mind. He was not trying to appear wise, he was trying to become stable. This distinction matters. Stoicism was never about being seen as calm. It was about building a mind that does not collapse under pressure. Aurelius understood that wisdom practiced quietly has more power than wisdom announced loudly. The Stoic path teaches that the loudest impulses are rarely the wisest. Reaction is cheap. Anyone can react. Restraint costs something. It demands awareness, patience, and strength. Aurelius knew that power doesn't begin with control over others, but with mastery over the self. A man who governs his emotions doesn't need to dominate conversations, arguments, or rooms. His presence carries weight because it is not begging to be felt. Silence in this sense is not weakness or avoidance. It is ethical discipline. It prevents unnecessary harm caused by impulsive words. It stops emotional contagion before it spreads. It preserves clarity in moments where chaos would feel easier. Aurelius chose silence because he understood responsibility. When you speak, you influence. When you react carelessly, you damage. Modern psychology quietly confirms what the Stoics already knew. Men who practice delayed response score higher in emotional intelligence. They regulate stress more effectively. They make fewer regret-driven decisions. They experience less burnout because they are not constantly leaking energy through emotional reactions. Silence becomes a form of self-respect. You pause, not because you lack thoughts, but because your thoughts matter. You do not rush your words because you value precision. You do not overshare because your inner world is not public property. This restraint creates a different kind of confidence, one that does not need applause. Over time, this discipline compounds, not through dramatic personality shifts or loud declarations, but through quiet refinement. Character is shaped in moments no one sees, when you choose composure over chaos, restraint over reaction, and clarity over noise. This is how a masterpiece is formed, not carved in a single act, but refined slowly through silence, patience, and the daily practice of governing yourself first. Number 5, modern self-mastery and social presence. In contemporary life, silence is rare. Everyone is broadcasting. Everyone is explaining, justifying, reacting in real time, filling every space with noise so they are not mistaken for being invisible. The man who resists this impulse stands out immediately, not because he demands attention, but because he does not need it. He does not narrate his intentions or preview his plans. He understands that words leak energy when they are spoken too early. Instead, he allows results to speak in their own time, with their own weight. He does not announce growth or advertise transformation. He embodies it quietly through posture, timing, restraint, and consistency. This creates a form of sophisticated influence that cannot be imitated by performance. People feel alignment before they hear logic. Long before he explains himself, others already sense that something about him is settled. The silent man walks with congruence between thought, emotion, and action. There is no internal contradiction pulling him in different directions. What he believes, what he feels, and what he does are moving in the same direction, at the same speed. This congruence produces trust without effort. Others feel safe around him, not because he is predictable in behavior, but because he is predictable in values. His reactions are not random. His boundaries are not emotional. He is calm in conflict, not because he lacks intensity, but because he has mastered it. He does not escalate unnecessarily or waste force proving dominance. He chooses response over reaction, clarity over impulse. This is not withdrawal from life or avoidance of engagement. It is engagement with discipline. Silence becomes his filter. Only what is essential passes through. Everything else dissolves before it reaches his nervous system. He listens more than he speaks, observes more than he explains, and acts only when action will matter. Over time, this man becomes known not for what he says in rooms, but for what changes after he has been there. People leave his presence feeling grounded, steady, and clear, as if the noise inside them has been reorganized simply by standing near someone who is no longer fighting himself. Number 6, becoming the quiet constant. The highest form of influence is consistency, because consistency cannot be faked for long. Loud men fluctuate with emotion, with trends, with approval, and with the weather of the room. Silent men endure because their identity is not dependent on reaction. When you move in silence, you stop negotiating who you are with the world. You stop explaining yourself, defending your pace, and justifying your vision. You no longer need permission to proceed because your direction is internally governed. In moments of chaos, you become a ghost, not invisible, not absent, but unshaken. While others react, you remain still. While others speak, you observe. Your aura stabilizes environments, not through force, but through presence. People feel calmer around you without knowing why. Your shadow holds depth without threat because it is integrated, not weaponized. This is not about appearing mysterious or withholding words to seem important. That is imitation, and imitation collapses under pressure. This is about integrity, the alignment between thought, action, and restraint. The silent man does not chase attention because attention is shallow and temporary. He understands that applause fades, but character compounds. He invests in habits that no one claps for. He builds discipline when no one is watching. He sharpens his mind in private, strengthens his body quietly, and refines his values through lived experience rather than borrowed opinions. Over years, this creates quiet authority, not the kind that demands obedience, but the kind that naturally attracts respect. People listen when he speaks because he rarely does, and when he does, his words are measured, deliberate, and grounded in reality. There is no excess, no emotional leakage, no need to dominate conversation. His boundaries are clear, and because he enforces them without hostility, without explanation, and without drama, they are rarely tested. This is elite self-mastery, not dominance, not aggression, not the need to prove strength, but the rare ability to remain calm, whole, and internally anchored in a world addicted to noise, validation, and constant display. While others broadcast their intentions, he executes. While others announce growth, he becomes it. Silence gives him leverage because it preserves energy. It sharpens timing. It prevents unnecessary exposure. When a man reaches this state, silence is no longer a tactic he deploys when convenient. It is no longer a strategy learned from observation. It is simply who he is. His presence speaks before his mouth ever opens. His actions answer questions he has never asked. And when he finally moves, when he finally speaks, when he finally decides, it carries weight. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it through years of restraint, consistency, and internal command.